Ancient Greece by J. Bowler. Greece began in several different cities. The first city was Myon. Myon began around 2200 BC. Another city is Mycenaean. It began around 1900 BC. The last city is Dorian. This is also the time of the Greek Dark Ages. The Dorians began ruling around 1100 BC. The Myonian kings shared their wealth with their people. At 1450 BC, almost all of the Myonian palaces were destroyed in a great fire. Mycenaean kings hoarded their wealth and only spent it on military items. Mycenaean people built their homes on top of hills, which helped them better defend themselves. During the Greek Dark Ages, the Greeks learned to make metal tools and weapons, which came in really handy when defending off invaders. Athens was a democracy for over 100 years. They had the right to stand trial, also the right to vote. Originally, a female could be a citizen if her father was. Corinth was a monarchy city. Corinth was ruled by one king. They provided soldiers to the Greek army during the Persian Wars. They allied with Sparta against Athens during the Peloponnesian War. For the currency, they developed their own coins. Sparta was monarchy. It was ruled by two hereditary kings from two separate families. The Gerousa body consisted of 28 over 60-year-old males. The executive committee of 5 ephors, 2 of the ephors accompanying the king on campaigns. In Greece, there were 6 different social classes. The first one was the male citizen. The male citizen had full legal status, the right to vote, and hold public office, and the right to own land. The next social class was the female citizen. Female citizens had very few rights. Some of them are unable to vote, unable to own land, and unable to inherit. After that was the children and adolescents. They attended schools, and the curriculum covered reading, writing, and mathematics. After that, they mastered literature, poetry, and music. Next is the laborers. The laborers were semi-free workers that were given little or no legal status. Helots were required to serve in armed forces in certain periods of war. They were sometimes killed in purges. One of the last ones are the slaves. Slaves were acquired through war, conquest, kidnap, or in purchase. Sometimes they could pay their way to freedom, or slaves in armies could be given freedom for victories. The last social class is the foreigners. They would register their residence to become a recognized class called the metics. They had equal tax status and the right to own land. Their children could also become citizens. The first Olympic Games were held in 776 BC. Only the local athletes participated. Women couldn't participate or even watch. Competitors swore the Olympic oath in front of the altar of Zeus, saying that they were pure Greek blood, they would train seriously, and they would play fairly. The first 13 games, there was only one running race, called the stadium race. They would run 630 feet. The Trojan War all started when Paris stole the wife of Menelaus, the king of Sparta. Agamemnon got a fleet of 1,000 ships to win Helen back, but he didn't succeed. Odysseus, a Greek commander, had a cunning plan to build a giant wooden horse. They placed the horse outside the walls of Troy. The Trojans thought it was an offering to them. The horse was actually filled with Greek soldiers. At night, the soldiers got out of the horse and then opened the gates for the rest of the Greek army. They surprised the Trojans and won Helen back. The Peloponnesian War was fought between Athens and Sparta. The war lasted for 27 years. Everybody in Athens fled the city to avoid Spartan attacks. After a third of the year of fighting, more than half of the population of Athens had died of illness. Athens ended up surrendering. After Athens surrendered, for 10 years Athens was an outpost of Sparta. Then after that, Athens got its independence back. Philosophy was a big part of Greek culture. The Greek philosophers thought about the big questions of life. Some of them are, who are we? How can we be happy? And does the universe have a purpose? Greek philosophy started around 600 BC. The first group of philosophers was a triad of milestone thinkers. Plato and Aristotle were two of the most important philosophers in Greece. Greek architects were not very innovative, but they did design some of the greatest buildings in the world at their time. They had three different types of columns: the Doric, Ionic, and the Mixed/Corinthian. The Temple of Artemis is the best example of the Ionic order. The Parthenon, built on the Acropolis, was designed to precise mathematical rule. Most buildings were built out of stone. Greek mythology was created to explain most elements of the human condition. The king of the gods was Zeus, and the queen was Hera. The 12 Olympians are Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Athens, Ares, Artemis, Apollo, Hermes, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, and Dionysus. Myths connected to their religion. Mythology explained the lives and the origin of the gods. Leonidas was king of Sparta. He was most known for his heroic stand at the Battle of Thermopylae. King Leonidas led a small group of 300 hand-picked men. He stayed back to defend the huge Persian army with only 1,000 troops. Leonidas was a very experienced military commander by that time of the Battle of Thermopylae. He held off the Persians for 2 days before being defeated. Alexander the Great is one of the greatest rulers Greece ever had. By 323 BC, he had conquered an empire that stretched from Greece to India. At the age of 20, he started a military campaign to conquer Persia. In a series of victories, he defeated Darius' armies, Persia. He defeated King Porus of India with an army of 75,000 men. His campaign lasted for 8 years. Pericles was the leader of Athens during its golden age. He helped take control of Delphi. He conquered the Thracian peninsula of Gallipoli, then established an Athenian colony. Pericles worked on reforming the Athenian democracy. Another thing he did was rebuild temples on the Acropolis that were destroyed by the Persians, including the Parthenon. Greece started to decline when Alexander the Great died in 323 BC, which started the Hellenistic period. After he died, his army was divided between his 4 generals. This led to several decades to war between 3 separate kingdoms. The city-states would join one of the 2 leagues. The city-states had different governments and were always changing allies. In 197 BC, Rome defeated Macedonia at the Battle of Cinophallae. Again, in 168 BC, Macedonia at the Battle of Pydna. The Romans had then conquered the rest of Alexander's kingdom in Asia decades after 140 BC. 40% and 80% of Athens were slaves. At its economic height in the 5th and 4th centuries BC, ancient Greece was the most advanced economy in the world. The word school comes from the ancient Greek for free time. In ancient Greek, the word idiot means anyone who wasn't a politician. The discoveries of Greek mathematicians such as Pythagoras, Euclid, and Archimedes are still used in mathematical teaching today. In ancient Greece, throwing an apple at someone was done to declare one's love. Ancient Greeks and Romans often bought slaves with salt. There was no word for religion in ancient Greece. Hoard, a supply or accumulation that is hidden carefully, guarded for preservation. Inherit, to take or receive, property, a right, a title, etc., by succession or will. Purge, the removal or elimination of members of a political organization, government, nation, etc., who are considered disloyal or otherwise undesirable. Altar, an elevated place or structure, as a mound or platform at which religious rites are performed or on which sacrifices are offered to gods, ancestors, etc. Philosophy, the rational investigation of truths and principles of being, knowledge, or conduct. Triad, a group of 3, especially of 3 close related persons or things. Acropolis, the citadel or high high fortified area of an ancient Greek city. Olympian, pertaining to Mount Olympus or dwelling thereon, as the gods of classical Greece. Peninsula, an area of land almost completely surrounded by water, except for the isthmus connecting it with the mainland. Decade, a period of 10 years. Economy, the management of the resources of a community, country, etc., especially with view to its productivity.